As you can see, we have our agenda here with a great lineup of speakers. And also, I would encourage everybody to post on social media, hashtag LSBC events, and you see our handle there. Just some housekeeping notes, just so you know you are all on mute and your video is turned off for this webinar format. I'd like to thank especially McCarthy Tetro for all of their support of this series this morning. Without their support, we'd not be able to bring this to you, so thank you to them. And also to let you know, for the Q&A at the bottom, I encourage all of you as the speakers are going along, as things come up and you have some thoughts, please click on that, put in your question, and a really nice function is that you can actually upvote. So if you have the same question and that somebody else, just click on that and it will rise to the top. And during our Q&A session at the end, which will be moderated by Wendy, any ones that are higher up on the scale will then come to her attention. At the end, we will also be doing 2 polls. So when the Q&A starts, please do those 2 polls. They're just great feedback for us as we do further events. If there's anything that comes up that you need to talk to Wendy about or myself, or have some questions that are non-related for people to vote on, you can send us a little note in the chat. And also to let you know that the event is being recorded and we will be putting it up on our website afterwards. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Wendy Herbert, our President and CEO, to start off today's event. And thank you again.
Thanks, Ryan, and welcome everybody. I hope everyone is keeping safe and healthy during this time. I apologize for my background noise. There is a gardener next door, so apologize for that. Bad timing, but these things happen, as we all know and have learned to be extremely flexible in our somewhat unique working environments that we've had. As many of you probably know, we have, since the start of COVID-19, moved to all of our events being virtual. We've had a wide spectrum of events between coffees with life sciences leaders, some fitness classes, and most recently we attended the virtual bio session, where we had a BC showcase and had 170 people from around the world come and learn about BC innovation. Our Deputy Minister from GEDC, Fazil, spoke for about 6 minutes about the sector and the importance of the sector for the BC-based economy. And then we profiled 7 of our member companies. It has been extremely well received. One of the advantages of these virtual events is that we can record them and put them on our website. And we've had, I think we're up to something like 45 downloads. So it was a great opportunity to participate in that and continue to showcase BC innovation. Coming out of that, we've had multiple meetings with investors and global pharma business development people that are very interested in coming to British Columbia. Some, surprisingly enough, actually traveling, but most virtually, to learn about the innovation that is happening in our province and meet with many of you, our members, to look for business development opportunities. So stay tuned for more about that coming in the fall. But in the meantime, switching gears, as we all know, since the COVID-19 started to set a new normal for us, there have been multiple non-dilutive funding programs that have been announced through various government partners and other organizations. And we've heard from many of you that while it's fantastic that they're out there, they've been a little bit difficult to navigate. And so we wanted to create this opportunity to actually bring together many of the people that are intimately familiar with the programs or are leading them, to be able to provide some opportunities for you to learn more about them. Thank you for those that have submitted questions in advance. They have been shared with the presenters. Many of them are quite specific in nature. At the end of this presentation, during the Q&A, we will have everyone's contact details up. So if we don't get to your question, please, our presenters have kindly offered to be available to either answer questions for you directly or direct you to the person that can answer them most effectively. With that, I also, we're going to move to starting this session. I want to give a big thanks to McCarthy. They have been a long supporter of the life sciences sector in British Columbia generally, and also of LSBC specifically. And I want to applaud David, who is very open-minded to moving what used to be some of our most popular events that were physical in-person events, where we got to be in the beautiful McCarthy building, to being virtual. So we're excited to be able to continue this series through our virtual working world. So I'm just going to introduce David. He's a partner in the business law group of the Vancouver office and is co-chair of the firm's National Life Sciences Group. David's practice is primarily focused in the area of securities law, corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions. He frequently advises public and private biotech companies on a wide variety of financing, corporate, commercial, and governance issues, and he regularly acts for Canadian, US, and international acquirers and targets on domestic and cross-border merger and acquisition transactions and takeover bids. And I know he's going to say a few words, and I'm sure he's going to talk about the amazing momentum that is happening in the life sciences sector in British Columbia. I know he personally has been extremely busy over the last 3 months. So with that, over to you, David. Again, thank you very much. And I will allow you to take over and say a few words and introduce the speakers.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks. Good morning. I hope everyone is healthy and staying safe and taking the appropriate precautions as we excitingly roll into phase 3. So as Wendy said, McCarthy's has been sponsoring this speaker series for many years now. And our goal when we put these events together is to deliver something of value so that you can hopefully adopt in some of these nuggets in your business and grow your business and essentially grow our life sciences community. On the topic of community, I do want to mention how proud I am to be associated with the BC life sciences community, particularly over the past few months. We've all been reaching out in various ways now virtually, in particular myself, with people throughout North America that are working in their respective biotech ecosystems. And it never takes very long in those conversations for the entire conversation to pivot to what BC is doing and what the companies and the participants in the BC life sciences community are doing to contribute, globally to the important issues, particularly the COVID-19 pandemic. I've personally been working with a lot of those companies that are either directly in the space or pivoting to be in the space or somehow contributing to a treatment, vaccine, or helping deal with the COVID-19 situation. And I think we should all be tremendously proud of the efforts and contributions of the members of the BC life sciences community, because they really have stepped up and shown exceptional leadership over the past few months. Finally, on leadership, I did want to mention the great job that Life Sciences BC is doing to keep our community connected in these challenging times, particularly over the past few months, as Wendy has mentioned. A lot of the programs have been put to virtual form. There's been new programs offered, the coffee with industry leaders, with Wendy, the fitness program that maybe I should probably participate in, but some great ideas that have come out of this situation that ensures that the community continues to build on the momentum that we've been building over time. And one of the things that I've always told people is that I'm interested to see when we all sort of go back to a normalized environment, what things stay because they were valuable. And I think that this, a new medium, be it virtually or otherwise, to connect, I think is a valuable way of connecting with people, abroad, in other places that are sometimes challenging to get in-person meetings. And I think that these are one of the sort of things that will stay around. So with that, I'm happy to introduce today our speakers on non-dilutive funding programs. Our first speaker today is Gina Arsons. Gina is the CFO of Canada's Digital Technology Supercluster, leading a new model of investment to accelerate innovation and competitiveness in Canada. Gina has over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneurial leader, starting her career with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Creating a positive impact in the work she does has driven Gina to have a varied career, from leading the digital transformation of a global industrial company and as the CEO, turning a poorly performing software company into a globally recognized brand. Gina graduated from the University of British Columbia with a Bachelor of Commerce degree and is a chartered accountant and chartered business evaluator. She has the distinction of receiving BC's top 40 under 40 award, as well as BC's most influential women in finance award. Over to you, Gina.
Great, thanks so much, David. And thank you, Wendy and Ryan, for having me today. I'm just gonna share my screen and I'll start my presentation. All right, so it looks like I'm up. Thank you so much again for having me. I'm super excited to be here speaking to you about this digital supercluster. I'm going to go in this presentation in three parts. One is a little bit about us, a little bit about what we fund, and then give you some examples of some of the projects that we fund. And so hopefully that will give you a good grounding on who we are, what we do, and why we do it. You know, at this digital supercluster, we solve some of the industry's largest problems. And we do this by assembling some of the best teams. And to do that, we do that because we have shown that together we can produce extraordinary solutions and results much bigger and more impactful than any organization could do on its own. So what you'll hear through the presentation is two core themes: is our co-investment and collaboration. It's a key part of who we are. There are 5 digital superclusters in Canada. We are the digital technology supercluster. There's also protein industries in the prairies. There's advanced manufacturing in Ontario, scale AI in Quebec, and oceans in the Maritimes. It's a new model. It started two years ago, just over 2 years ago, May 2018. And it's a model where we bring public and private industries together to collaborate on solving some of these biggest problems. Super excited to be here. When we decided to do putting together the supercluster and the digital supercluster, we looked at some of the industry's biggest challenges in health, in industrial, communications, transportation, natural resources, and data was a common theme, and data visualization, data analysis, data collection. And so from there, we took those industry challenges, we took the technology opportunities and created these cross-sector programs. And the programs, we invest in programs and we select projects based in programs in precision health, digital twins, and data commons. And we have an overarching capacity building program, which speaks to the fact that we want to do more with the money than just invest in technology. We want to create a bigger impact through that collaboration, but also the spillover effect into our ecosystem. It's quite important for us. And so the type of members that are part of the supercluster, we have over 500, probably about 650 organizations today working with us in different levels of membership, but you'll see there's a huge variety of types of companies. And it is that cross collaboration, that cross sector power that we are trying to tapping into. So we have natural resources, we have healthcare, industrial technology, small, large, new, old. We have government and we have post-secondary institutes. We run the gamut of all the types of organization. So what kind of funding do we do? So it is non-dilutive, and our members that get investment from us typically attract additional investment because our investment typically increases the company's valuation. Number one, from a stamp of approval, and also because we're infusing cash into a company. And we also find the secret sauce for us is that we instigate corporate partnership because of our investment lowers corporate risk. And big corporations, smaller corporations often think big corporations have it easy. They have so much resources, but there's a scarcity of resources in all types of company. And so understanding how to lower someone's risk, increase their risk of their return on investment is a really important part of our model. And so I've talked a little bit about co-investment collaboration, but reiterating here, it is a co-investment model. We're all put our money together on solving a big idea. So our projects are funded with a consortium of technology partners, industry partners, post-secondary institutes, and of course ourselves and other providers. So on this slide, I'm going to go through kind of what and how we invest and just give you some little gate posts that you can look at. So our projects are industry-led. It is a competitive process, and we have two types of process. We have a timed process where we take projects in every 6 months, and we have a competition call then, or we have a continuous process where we've set out parameters and we will review those projects as they come in. It's a collaboration. I think I've mentioned this before. A project is many parties, and it has an industry player. It's led by an industry, typically and a post-secondary institute, and a small organization and service providers that go into it. We do invest in Canadian companies, and typically they're multi-year investments. They don't have to be, but they typically are, and it's a co-investment. We're all in this together, and that's a really important part of what we do and how we do it. We don't invest in academic research. We don't invest in a single company initiative. So if you come to us with a great idea by yourself without other companies involved, that's not the model for us, because we really want to tap into that collaboration, the power of the collaboration. It's what we do well in Canada, and that's what we want to exploit. And we don't get involved in capital raising. So the next slide, I'm going to go through how we evaluate projects. And there's a detailed list of our evaluation criteria on our website, but on a high level, we select projects based on their team and their project management abilities, reasonable cost structure, realistic management. We invest on technology innovation, whether it's newly applied or it's a degree of innovation and risk, right? We're trying to lower the risk for companies to try and take these risks. So that is important. We do look at commercial impact. It's important for us to see that there's going to be a commercial return. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. It can be a little bit later, but showing and understanding the market size, the place in the market, the key advantages, and a clear plan is important. And we do look at IP, and we look at look at how that's going to be handled and managed through that consortium, either what you're bringing in and what you're taking out. And we look really importantly at the ecosystem impact. What is this doing for small and medium enterprises? How are we applying IP that's coming in? What kind of jobs are creating? What skills? What kind of diversity is going to be created in this? And how does this, some of the pieces make it greater as a result of that combination? That's a quick overview of our project selection process. And I forgot my timer, so I'm not sure if I'm running on time, Ryan, but you can let me know if I'm running late, because I have three projects I can kind of describe to you. This one is precision agriculture to improve crop health. And you'll see at the bottom all the different players that came together to present and propose on this project, and we selected it. We have biochemistry, we have genomics, we have robotics, we have machine learning, and really the outcome of this is the decreased use of pesticide and increase in crop yield. And we do that through technology and not through additional chemicals. And so super powerful project. And this is a data commons project. Another project that we do is called the Dermatology Point of Care Intelligent Network. And really it's an AI powered medical imaging system that can early detect cancerous tumors. We look at it from a skin cancer. So you can take a picture of a mole and use AI, apply AI and check to see if it's cancerous. And that changes the dynamic. When you get diagnosed with skin cancer at like day one, it's a huge recovery rate. And if you wait 6 months, you have a really low recovery rate from skin cancer. And the ability for Canadians to access healthcare professionals to diagnose this is a 6-month waiting period. So this fills a massive, important need for the betterment of Canadians using technology. And another project that we have invested in is called the Earth Data Store. And this takes satellite images and makes them usable. When we all have Google Maps and we see that everything can, you can see everything, but when you elevate the pictures to the, higher levels, the images are really weak and not very usable, and it takes an enormous amount of processing to stitch them together. And by the time you do that, you can't tell if there's extreme weather patterns developing, you can't tell where the fires are going. And so this is really important, is to create this, we're creating this data store, our partners are creating this data store to have these images available. And Spark Geo, you'll see one of the players at the bottom is going to take that data and then use it and commercialize it. So it's creating an ecosystem about Earth data satellite images. So how to join the supercluster. Membership is open. You can join as an associate and it's free to join. You can explore collaborative opportunities, develop those projects, and we want you to write a winning proposal and continue to repeat your success. And that is my presentation, and really thank you for having me. And it's a pretty exciting program. Our big thanks to ISED for bringing this to life, and it serves an incredibly important piece of the ecosystem for us to grow our businesses in Canada and specifically here in BC. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Gina. I know, speaking with some representatives of companies who are involved in the projects and taking advantage of the programs, it's terrific, terrific opportunities, and they really leverage the benefits of what you're offering. So our next presenter is Roland Laird. Roland has been with the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada since 2018, where she specializes in providing support for ministerial engagement. Her files include health, life sciences, biosciences, the Yukon, and small business. Roland previously worked at Global Affairs Canada in the International Humanitarian Assistance Bureau, as well as at the Embassy of Canada to Finland. Prior to working with the federal government, Roland also worked at the U.S. Embassy to Canada in Ottawa, the City of Surrey, and the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. Welcome, Roland. Over to you.
Thanks so much, David. I'm just going to start sharing my screen here, so just give me a sec. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that. So today I'm going to be giving an overview of the Strategic Innovation Fund, which is one of ISED's flagship funding programs. There will be some other amazing federal programs discussed later in the call, but SIF, as it's called, has seen a lot of success supporting life sciences companies, particularly when they're at a certain level and trying to scale up. Or if they have something really innovative and they're starting to build more connections. And COVID-19, although obviously a terrible blow to the economy and the health of many people, has also created a lot of opportunity. And we talk often about these silver linings. So of course, the big announcement for Abcelera, which a lot of you are familiar with, was funded through SIF. So I'm going to talk a little bit about SIF, and then I'm going to end the presentation by talking just really quickly and generally about some of the other federal programs that are available, because one thing we hear a lot is it's really confusing to find which program you can use and what's going to be most helpful for you. So let's dive in. So the Strategic Innovation Fund has 5 streams. There's $2.2 billion over 5 years in the 5 streams to support innovative business activities. This includes R&D projects, firm expansion, attraction of large-scale investments to Canada, and collaborative technology demonstration projects. There is a floor in SIF, so project proposals below 10 million are referred to the RDAs, the Regional Development Agencies. Here in BC, that's Western economic diversification, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. So it is worth noting that, again, Sif is most useful when you're at a certain scale and you're looking to make that leap, rather than if you're a startup or you're looking for seed funding. One of the biggest Sif projects here in BC is with Stem Cell, who received $2.25 million. So they're going to be developing regenerative medicine products, and the construction of manufacturing facilities is also huge. So frequently Sif projects are looking towards the future, towards generating value, and they kind of have a longevity to them, which may not seem applicable right now in COVID, when everyone's sort of panicking and trying to keep their heads above water. But as we've seen in the life sciences field in BC, some companies are actually finding this an opportunity to scale up, and their technology and their product may now be more relevant and may have a bigger market. So this could be something for you to consider. Stream 4 is kind of an interesting stream, and one that I wanted to highlight because, you know, in this time when everybody's doing more virtual work and people are connecting more often with people they don't always talk to, Stream 4 supports projects that advance industrial research, R&D, and technology demonstrations through national and network collaboration models. So if you are a private sector company who has recently found themselves talking more often about your project or your technology to other researchers, nonprofit organizations, this could be an opportunity for you. And we have seen a lot more of this in the life sciences sector as people try to pivot. So we're seeing more collaboration between private sector, for example, stepping up in collaboration with universities to 3D print masks. So that's a very small scale example of the kind of growth that's coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it does lead into some of this funding for Stream 4. So a good local-ish example using the Terry Fox Institute is the Digital Health and Discovery Platform, which is led by Imagia out of Montreal and the Terry Fox Institute out of Vancouver. So it's across the country, and it also has this collaborative feel to it. And they're working on using artificial intelligence to improve personalized medicine. And there's private sector people involved, there's researchers involved. So it's similar to the work of the Digital Technology Supercluster that Gina just mentioned, but it's at a much higher scale. So if you are a growing and maybe established life sciences company who's beginning to see more of these kind of connections, and you have you know, an advantage or a technology that you think you can't get anywhere else, particularly if it's related to COVID and it has a national angle, this could be of interest to you. So Stream 5 aims to develop large-scale national innovation ecosystems, and this is kind of like Stream 4 leveled up. So this would include collaborations between SMEs, incubators and accelerators, academic and research institutions, and a large corporation. As you can see, we don't have a Stream 5 example here, so if you think that this could be you and your network, worth investigating. So this brings us to the Sif Fund that was specifically announced for COVID. I am going to say up front that the current round of funding closed on May 11th, so this is something where if you're interested in this, you'd have to be looking for the next round of funding. So this COVID-19 Sif stream represents $600 million over 2 years to support COVID-19 vaccine and therapy clinical trials led by the private sector, as well as Canadian biomanufacturing opportunities. So as COVID-19 has revealed, Canada has a lot of capacity, but not necessarily a lot of ability to mass manufacture things like vaccines, antibodies. You know, we're finding all these gaps in our system, and that's what this stream aims to close. So as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the most well-known examples from this stream, and I think the first so far, is AbCellera received up to $175 million on their antibody work, as well as, and it's not mentioned in the slide, they also are going to build a good manufacturing practices facility in Vancouver. So it's responding to our current crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, and looking forward to building Canada's capabilities in this area to better respond to new pandemics, new threats, and also to create jobs and infrastructure moving into the future. One thing that we hear from stakeholders a lot, as Wendy mentioned at the beginning, is there's a dizzying array of programs. So this slide will be made available to everyone after the presentation, but there are some really good wayfinding and navigating and sort of breaking it down into easy language resources out there. So one is the Canada Business app, which you can use on your phone or your desktop, and it will help walk you through the type of funding that's available for your specific business. The screenshot in the presentation there is from the Innovation Canada website, which is similar and also very popular. The Innovation Canada website has been retooled to include COVID-19 programs. So you can go in and click through and you can say you're looking for wage support, you're looking for non-dilutive funding, you're looking to hire a student. That's the first question there. And you'll answer a series of questions and it will provide you with a tailored list. So you can get support for both your COVID-19 immediate response and for what kind of programs might be available to you as, say, a woman-owned life sciences company. Or an Indigenous-owned biotech. So that kind of helps break it down for your specific situation. The Canada 19 COVID Economic Response Plan website also breaks it down really well, as does Small Business BC, who's compiled a list of all the Government of Canada resources and sort of breaks them down into plain language and answers a lot of common questions like, can I keep somebody on the wage subsidy even if I don't have somebody doing actual work? So that's it from me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it back to David.
Great, thanks very much, Roland. Great information on the various streams that are provided under Sif. I think you sort of threw down a challenge for us to find some participants in stream 5, so I'm happy to take on that. Next up is Eric Atkinson. So Eric is a life sciences industrial technology advisor with the NRC's Industrial Research Assistance Program in Vancouver. Before joining NRC's IRAP in 2014, he was Chief Business Officer of Reach Bio Research Labs, a boutique CRO he co-founded in Seattle, Washington in 2007, which specializes in preclinical predictive toxology and efficacy assays for biotech and large pharma clients. Prior to that, he was the head of corporate development at Stem Cell Technologies, where he worked for 10 years. Dr. Atkinson has an MSc in immunology from the University of Manitoba and a PhD biochemistry from the University of Alberta. Over to you, Eric.
Thanks, David. And sharing the screen. Or maybe not. Did that share? All right. That's better. You know, 20 years ago when Life Sciences BC was BC Biotech, I did a talk for stem cell, and back then it was transparencies and an overhead projector, and then I managed to screw that up too. So yeah, I'm here to talk about IRAP, and so IRAP is part of the NRC. It's one of the key programs that the federal government has to support small and medium-sized companies to develop and commercialize innovative technologies. So our mandate is to stimulate wealth creation for Canada through innovation, and we do this by helping to accelerate the growth of innovation-based SMEs by providing advisory services, connections to appropriate businesses, or business and technical experts, and sometimes also financial assistance. So most people do tend to think of IRAP as primarily a funding program, but in fact, it is mainly an advisory program with some funding attached to it. So every year, IRAP serves about 8,000 clients across Canada. And of those, only about 3,000 receive funding, and the rest are supported with advisory services. So who's giving these advisory services is the frontline people at IRAP, or people like me that deal with the client SMEs, the industrial technology advisors, or ITAs. So IRAP ITAs, we tend to be mid to late stage career professionals from a range of sectors. Generally, we've got extensive business management, technical, commercialization, and entrepreneurial experience. And in many cases, when an ITA provides advice to an IRAP client firm, it's actually from the context of having been there and done that. So there's 255 of us currently across Canada with experience in a variety of areas, and we can tap into all of these ITAs to assist our client firms. So here in BC, there's 5 ITAs that deal directly with the life science community that have what I would call, traditional wet science, wet life science backgrounds like microbiology, immunology, microbiology, pharmaceutical sciences, that kind of thing. And there's also 3 others that have experience in digital health, medical devices, and things like that. So life science firm in BC engaged with IRAP would probably have one of these ITAs on the slide as their lead ITA. And that lead ITA would then assemble a team of other ITAs, either from this list or synergistic areas of technologies for the firm, or from somebody else across Canada. So we'll work together as a team to help advise the clients and look at potential opportunities to support them with funding. So we try to build a trusting relationship with the client firms and really get into a lot of details with them. We work really closely with them so we can develop a good understanding of what the firm's growth objectives are, what their gaps and needs are, so that we can really provide the type of advice, connections, and fundings that can move the needle for them. So every client is going to have a unique situation, and the IRAP program is very uniquely tailored for each particular situation. So if after we've engaged with the client for a little while and we think that we would like to invest taxpayers' money into the client, then we can start to talk about project development. Before I get to that, I just want to mention that when IRAP funds a project, that's not a grant. It's actually a financial contribution towards a project. And there are some differences between contributions and grants in a number of ways, including with accounting. I won't go into that on this slide. You can look at this slide later on, but it's a matter of interest or time interests. I think one of the important things to know is that IRAP funding is not provided as a lump sum upfront payment. It's provided as a reimbursement. So the client needs to have incurred the eligible expenses first and then claim for the reimbursement afterwards, usually monthly. So since that IRAP reimbursement level for eligible expenses is also not 100%, and since it only covers certain types of expenses in a project, the client has to be able to demonstrate to the IRAP team that they have the financial wherewithal to be able to fund their share of the project costs, and also to be able to bridge the gap between when they pay for the expenses and when IRAP reimburses them for it. So IRAP projects aren't really for brand new startup companies, usually with absolutely no capital and no way of fund their ongoing operations. They're really best suited for companies that have at least some modest level of initial investment. Maybe they have revenue streams or some other way of financing their operations. There's always exceptions, but as I mentioned at the beginning, our mission is to accelerate the growth of SMEs. So we're not here to help a brand new firm get started, always exceptions, and we're not here to throw a lifeline to a sinking company. We're here to give that extra push to a company that's already moving in the right direction and help to accelerate that growth. So what kind of expenses can IRAP support if we have a project with a firm? Basically, we can support the technical team involved in R&D. So we can provide partial salary support for T4 technical employees that are working directly on a project's objectives and activities. And we can also support some contractor costs. Usually the contractor firms need to be in Canada, but again, under exceptional circumstances, that's more of a guideline. They're not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes a company might not be in a position to hire an individual that they normally would be a T4 employee, but they're actually paying under contract as a self-employed employee, and that person can also be eligible for IRAP reimbursement under the contractor category. So what we do not support, though, is here. We don't support employee benefits. It's only the basic salaries. No equipment costs, no consumables, no patenting legal costs. We don't support clinical trials, manufacturing, and we normally don't support travel, although there are some special programs where that might be considered. I've added that in because I've seen some of the questions that some people had in advance of this seminar or webinar. So hopefully that avoids future questions about that for as regards to IRAP. So basically, who can we select, or what's the basic IRAP eligibility? The firm that we support should be incorporated in Canada, 500 employees or fewer, and the objective to grow through innovation with a bona fide, realistic growth plan. If you have not engaged with IRAP before and you would like to, and you think you would be eligible for IRAP support, or even just for the advisory services from the ITA team, the best way to get in touch with us initially is to call this toll-free number. I've got it again at the end of the presentation. And through that number, you'll get connected to a local client engagement advisor who are very similar to IRAP ITAs in their background and everything, but they're sort of the first line of engagement with IRAP. And then if it looks as though it's appropriate to connect the firm with the ITAs, then the client engagement advisor will do that. So let's see. Yeah, so when we get the projects, basically just know we're going to be doing multiple assessments. The team does it, and two separate types of assessment. We assess the business plan, business case, the financial stability of the company, et cetera, and we also assess the technical aspects of the project. And we'll bring in the right kind of technical expertise to be able to do that if required. So IRAP has a number of different types of projects. Really, the kind of things that we do, because we're so much engaged directly with the client firms, all of these are most of these are very much tailored to the clients. It's hard to sort of put down a slide that says any specifics, but most of the projects that we do are what we call regular IRAP projects. In addition to that, though, we've got some very small accelerated projects that are good for projects that are pretty limited in scope. Good way for IRAP to test out a firm's ability to execute on a project with limited risk. And also, we have youth employment projects that can support a relatively new graduate under 31 years of age for a limited period of time. Those are usually few and far between, but there's a few available right now. So if you're already an IRAP client and you have a good candidate, talk to your lead ITA about that. And then IRAP International is sort of a division of IRAP, and they have a number of international collaborative projects that they set up with the IRAP equivalent in different countries. So I know I'm running a little bit late, probably. So I won't go into this, but there's a link at the bottom here, or URL at the bottom of this slide, that sort of will take you to a page for IRAP International that lists all of the available calls. Unlike most IRAP projects, the international projects are actually there's a call for them on a time-limited basis. So these come and go on that site at various times, so it's a good thing to be able to check those out if you happen to have international or partners that you would like to do collaboration with. Let's see. Okay, so the other things that IRAP can do in addition to traditional projects is, because we're part of the NRC, which is Canada's largest governmental research institute, it's got a number of specific facilities and infrastructure and experts across the country. We can help the client get access to NRC expertise and offset some of the costs of that through an NRC R&D certificate. And also through a limited kind of consultation engagement with an NRC researcher that might have specific expertise that's relevant to the client's technology development. So moving on to COVID-19 and IRAP. Basically, nothing super special to say. I think the take-home message should be that IRAP as a program is continuing on under a business as usual situation. Obviously, things have changed a little bit. Normally, we do site visits and we go to the client site, see what their facilities are like, meet with a number of people in the company, and those now have gone to virtual. Hopefully, that changes sometime soon. And we've done a number of COVID-specific projects with sort of a special fund that got repurposed for that early on. Those were for high priority projects that came from a national budget. And there have been some press releases lately for local companies that you might have seen that got IRAP assistance for that. We also, or the federal government also used IRAP to execute on this innovation assistance program, a wage subsidy for certain types of companies that fall into the innovations sector. You know, that was branded as an IRAP project or IRAP program, but really they were just using the IRAP infrastructure. So I don't really consider it IRAP so much. I think I'm just going to leave it at that because I think my time is probably, I've got 10 minutes and 30 seconds on my timer here. But I've got a couple of slides at the end here that you might be interested in. Early on, because of IRAP's pretty unique engagement with the SME community across Canada, we organized and facilitated these virtual pitch sessions, which got a lot of companies, 76 out of 300 that applied, in front of a large number of other government departments like Health Canada, Public Health Canada, Agency, D&D, ISED, et cetera. And they had a chance to let these other government departments understand what the capacity was for COVID-19 related technologies within the SME community across Canada. That led to a number of things. Sometimes it didn't. Sorry for those of you who thought it was a waste of time, but it actually, there was a lot going on in the background that you might not be aware of. But it also helped to inform some of the challenges that you see from time to time on NRC website, the IRAP website, the ISC challenge website, et cetera. I will actually, there's a link up here at the top to go to the NRC challenge program that from time to time will put out a call for certain challenges that have very specific targeted funding for COVID-19 related projects. I think that what I'm going to do too is before I share the slides with LSBC, I'll add another slide with a number of other links for some of the related challenges that IRAP is actually helping to do assessments for. Once again, if you're new to IRAP and you want to engage with us, go through this toll-free number. That's really the best way. And a client engagement advisor will help you out. And thank you very much. Sorry if I've gone over.
Well, thanks, Eric, very much for that overview of the IRAP programs, projects, and support. I know that IRAP funding is very important to some of the companies that I work with. So very, very good program and opportunities. Our next presenter is Pat Brady. So Pat has held the role of director of the I2 Fund at Genome BC, a nonprofit organization since September 2015. Prior to this position, Pat was Vice President, Investments at GrowthWorks Capital, a venture capital fund management firm from 1998 to 2015. Pat has led numerous equity and debt investments and has served as a board director or observer for over 20 private and public life sciences companies, including Celator Pharmaceuticals, which is now Jazz Pharmaceuticals, Techmira Pharmaceuticals, which is now Arbutus Biopharma, and Xenon Pharmaceuticals. Prior to GrowthWorks, Pat spent 6 years in financial and operating roles with Inex Pharmaceuticals and Dynamotive Technologies. Pat also was an offensive lineman for the Hamilton Ticats. I think that's worth noting, being a football fan. And Pat also holds an MBA from the Ivy Business School. So with that, over to you, Pat.
Okay, well, thank you, David, and thank you, LSBC, for inviting Genome BC out to share our story. I'll be fairly fast here. So moving along, I just want to say I hope everybody is healthy and safe and staying in your bubble. And just launch into a brief description of Genome BC and the genomics enterprise. There's 6 genomic centers across Canada. All are independently run. And then we have an umbrella organization, Genome Canada. And basically all these centers are more or less celebrating a 20-year anniversary this year. So at Genome BC, we are essentially, our mandate is to catalyze life science research and development in BC. We have roughly accumulated over 20 years about a portfolio of $1 billion of research projects, I think 425 projects, and then across multi-sectors and multidisciplines. So we invest in research. We also invest in entrepreneurship and commercialization, and that's where I have entered the scene for the company 4 years ago. Just quickly, we have certainly over the past 20 years accumulated a bunch of partnerships with a lot of large firms and small firms across the globe. And as I mentioned, we are multi-sectoral. This shows roughly our dollar activities in each of the sectors. The health sector is by far our largest activity, probably about close to 60% of our funding has gone to human health programs. And now I'll discuss essentially what Genome BC does in terms of its support of the private sector, industry directly. And just regarding the COVID-19, unfortunately, it is after our closing. We closed in May a competition for COVID-19 projects. We called it the Rapid Response Fund. We ended up funding about 13 projects and received about 120 applications. Each of the projects received in the neighborhood of about $250,000. So definitely well below the Sif scale. So now I'll discuss essentially what are our active and current ongoing private sector funding programs. And by far the largest one, which is the Industry Innovation Fund, or the I-Squared Fund. And this is essentially a venture debt style fund. And the funding is more or less runs through a grace period of 4 years, and then the repayment is required in years 5 and 6. And then there's also a very small royalty attached as well that is also capped. The general funding range for this fund is around $500,000 to $1.2 million per company. And we generally like to see at least matching funding. This could be other equity or even other grant programs or R&D grants that would match our funding at least. And we also would like to invest in companies that have achieved already a proof of concept, or proof of principle, as we often call it. And generally speaking, we are investing in companies based in BC, and the benefits are accruing to BC. So the various opportunities that we look at for the I-Squared Fund are very broad. The Genome BC name could be a little deceiving because we tend to invest in a lot of technologies, not necessarily within the omics space. In human health, that's particularly true. We actually do a significant number of investments that are outside of the general genomics or omics field, and I've got a list here. And we also have pretty traditional venture capital criteria for review and assessment of the opportunities and our decisions on investing. I probably won't go through this in any detail. I should mention in regards to the management team, we do recognize that we're still, in a way, the ecosystem for life sciences is still small in BC, and sometimes management teams cannot be fully formed and have perhaps the full-on experience that you would want to see as a venture capitalist. So we are definitely looking for, I think, people with promising management skill sets, not necessarily having years and years of experience behind them. Here also we have a advisory council that is involved with our assessments of opportunities. And there's 7 members. I think you'd recognize some of these names. Almost all have been CEOs with various small or medium-sized fund or operations. And all across, we probably cross all sectors with the expertise on this advisory council. And here's a look at our portfolio. We have made 11 investments to date, roughly invested about $9 million to date. And a number of these companies, almost half the companies, are out or operating in what we call the digital health space. So that seems to have attracted a fair bit of our funding to date. Now I'll also just briefly describe 2 other programs that are funding in the private sector, and both programs are very similar in structure. They are more or less intended to encourage collaborations between private sector and academic researchers that are specializing in omics related research. So these 2 funds, and one is called GAP, and this is a fund that is actually driven by Genome Canada, and these are for fairly large projects. They can be multi-year, multi-million-dollar projects, and again, there has to be a focus on genomics within the GAP program. And the same with GeneSolve, but these are our more local driven projects by Genome BC only, and these are smaller grant awards. I seem to be on a quick timer here. I'll go right back. So anyways, GeneSolve is generally at a much smaller scale than the GAP program. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. David, did you want to say, oh, we lost. Do you want to say a few words?
No, I was just wanted to thank Pat for that overview, and again, a very good product or program that hopefully people can take advantage of. So I just wanted to again thank all of the presenters. Very informative, and hopefully, as I said, those that are participating can take away a few nuggets and use in their business to apply for these programs and get some non-dilutive funding.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you again, David and McCarthy, for your support, ongoing support and support of this event specifically. There is a poll on the screen if people would like to fill it out. We are always looking for ideas of topics that are of interest to our community, so please don't hesitate to reach out to Ryan or myself if you have areas that you would like to understand more, would like to hear more about, or even if you'd like an opportunity to speak about a topic. I'm conscious of the time, so I think we do have to close it off. We will be, the recorded version of this webinar will be available on our website. We'll send it to all of the attendees. And with that, we will send the contact details of the speakers so that you can reach out to them directly, as I know it is a top of the hour right now. So thank you again, David and McCarthy, and all of our speakers. There was a lot of really relevant, tangible, and actionable information for the people on the phone. So we really, really appreciate it. And with that, I will wish everyone a happy Thursday, and in advance, a good long Canada Day. I guess it's not really a long weekend this year. Anyway, thanks everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.